The sun had long set behind the rolling hills of the small industrial town, casting a tranquil dusk over the Miller household. Inside their modest living room, the soft glow of a single lamp illuminated the space, highlighting the worn but comfortable furniture that had witnessed countless family gatherings and quiet evenings. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. John Miller sat hunched over the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. His brow was furrowed with worry, and the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily upon his shoulders. Across from him, Sarah Miller watched him with a mixture of concern and unwavering support. Her gentle presence was a balm to his troubled spirit. The couple had always faced challenges together, but tonight felt different, more daunting. "I don't know, Sarah," John sighed, his voice tinged with despair. "I've been searching for jobs every day since I got laid off, but nothing's panning out." Sarah reached out, her hand resting reassuringly on his. "I know it's hard, John, but we'll get through this together. Maybe it's time to consider something different." John shook his head, the lines of frustration deepening. "I love working at the factory. It's been my life for so long. But you're right. We need to stay hopeful." She smiled softly, her eyes reflecting both empathy and determination. "We always have. Remember when things seemed impossible before? We found a way then, and we'll find it again." John looked into Sarah's eyes, drawing strength from her unwavering faith. Despite the mounting bills and the uncertainty that loomed over them, her belief in a better tomorrow gave him a glimmer of hope. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of the local factory, where the relentless hum of machinery filled the air. Workers, both black and white, moved rhythmically between their stations, their faces etched with fatigue and frustration. Today, however, there was an undercurrent of tension that made the usual routine feel charged with unease. John walked through the factory doors, the familiar scent of metal and oil greeting him like an old, albeit weary, friend. As he made his way to the assembly line, he noticed a group of workers gathered in a semicircle, their attention fixed on a makeshift podium at the front. Marcus Thompson, a tall black man in his early 40s with a commanding presence, stood addressing the crowd. "We've been pushing for better wages and safer working conditions for months now, and nothing has changed," Marcus declared, his voice steady and resolute. "It's time we take a stand." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but not everyone was on board. A white worker named Tom, frustration etched into his features, spoke up. "And what if the company doesn't take us seriously? Maybe it's easier if we just keep our heads down." Another worker, Jamal, a black man with a firm stance, countered, "No, it's not easier. We deserve better, just like anyone else." John felt the tension rise, the air thick with unspoken resentments and fears. As the meeting continued, it became clear that the racial divide was as much a barrier as the economic struggles they faced. Some white workers expressed hostility towards their black colleagues, suggesting that the union's actions were influenced by racial motives rather than genuine labor concerns. As the meeting adjourned, John lingered, grappling with the complexities of the situation. He couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental needed to change, but he wasn't sure where to start. By mid-afternoon, the town square was bustling with activity. The central gazebo had been set up to host an assembly, and a crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of anxiety and anger. Banners and signs advocating for workers' rights fluttered in the gentle breeze, reflecting the collective frustration of the community. Mayor Tom Harris stood at the podium, his authoritative presence commanding attention. He adjusted the microphone and looked out over the sea of expectant faces. "Folks," Mayor Harris began, his tone measured yet firm, "I understand the factory workers are struggling, but these new policies are necessary to keep our town afloat. We need to reduce costs to stay competitive." A collective groan arose from the crowd, followed by a ripple of boos. A man in the front row, his face flushed with anger, shouted, "Reducing costs means cutting our wages. How are we supposed to support our families?" Another voice rang out, "And what about the working conditions? Nothing changes unless we fight for it." Mayor Harris raised his hands, trying to quell the rising discontent. "We're doing what we must to ensure the survival of the factory and, by extension, our community. There's no easy solution. As the crowd erupted in protest, the underlying racial tensions mirrored the economic struggles, creating a volatile mix that threatened to tear the town apart. John watched from the sidelines, the realization sinking in that the divisions within the community ran deeper than he had previously understood. After the chaotic scene in the town square, John sought refuge in the quiet aisles of Evelyn Carter's general store. The store was a cornerstone of the community, a cozy and welcoming space filled with shelves of everyday necessities and local goods. Evelyn, an elderly black woman with a warm smile and eyes that had seen both hardship and resilience, attended to customers with grace and patience. John approached the counter, the bell above the door chiming softly as he entered. Evelyn looked up from her work, her expression immediately softening with concern. "Good evening, Evelyn," John greeted, forcing a weary smile. "Evening, John," she replied warmly. "You look troubled. Everything all right?" John sighed, leaning against the counter. "Just everything. The factory is shutting down, the union is in turmoil, and I don't know what to do next." Evelyn poured him a cup of coffee, her movements deliberate and comforting. "Times like these are tough, but remember, our strength lies in our community. Don't be afraid to reach out and help each other. I've been thinking about that, actually. But it's hard when there's so much anger and resentment around," John confessed, staring into his coffee. "Change doesn't happen overnight," Evelyn said thoughtfully. "It starts with small steps and open hearts. Maybe you can find a way to bridge the gaps." John nodded slowly, the wisdom in her words resonating with him. As he left the store, Evelyn's encouragement lingered in his mind, planting the seed for a journey he had yet to fully comprehend. Later that day, John returned to the factory office to say his final goodbyes. The space, usually filled with the clatter of keyboards and the murmur of conversations, now felt heavy with the finality of his departure. He carefully packed his personal belongings into a worn leather briefcase, the rhythmic ticking of a clock echoing in the quiet room. As he gathered his things, he was met with a mix of pity and indifference from his co-workers. A white worker named Steve gave him a stiff handshake. "Tough break, Miller. Guess it's time for a new chapter, huh?" John forced a polite smile. "Yeah, something like that. It's been good working with all of you." From across the room, a black co-worker named Linda approached him with genuine concern. "Take care, John. If you need anything, let us know." Before John could respond, another white worker, Greg, muttered under his breath, "Probably joining the union now, too." John felt a pang of frustration but kept his composure. "Let's keep it professional, all right?" he said, trying to diffuse the tension. As he left the office, the subtle and overt racism he encountered deepened his understanding of the town's divisions. It was no longer just about jobs and wages. It was about entrenched prejudices that fueled the community's discord. Back at home, the Miller household was enveloped in darkness, save for the soft light of a single lamp illuminating the kitchen. John sat alone at the table, staring into his empty cup of coffee, lost in thought. The day's events had taken their toll, leaving him feeling overwhelmed and directionless. "I don't know, Sarah. Evelyn gave me some good advice, but it's not easy to see the path forward," John murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah entered the kitchen quietly, her presence a comforting sight in the dimly lit room. She approached him and sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes the hardest things to do are the most important. If you feel like reaching out, I support you. But take it one step at a time." John looked up, meeting her eyes with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "You're right. Maybe I need to talk to Marcus. See if there's a way we can work together." She nodded, her expression encouraging yet filled with concern. "That sounds like a good idea. Just be careful, okay? There are a lot of strong feelings out there." John took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "I will. Thanks, Sarah." As Sarah left the kitchen, John sat for a moment longer, contemplating the journey that lay ahead. Despite the challenges and hostility he faced, the thought of building bridges began to take root, setting him on a path that could change not only his life but the entire community. The next morning, the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains of Evelyn Carter's general store, casting a warm glow on the neatly arranged shelves. The store was already bustling with early shoppers seeking their daily necessities. Evelyn, an elderly black woman with a gentle demeanor and a wealth of wisdom etched into her face, moved gracefully behind the counter, attending to customers with her usual grace. John entered the store, the doorbell chiming softly as he approached the counter. Evelyn looked up from her work, her eyes meeting his with a knowing warmth. "Good morning, John," Evelyn greeted him with a warm smile. "Morning, Evelyn," John replied, returning her smile with a hint of fatigue still lingering in his eyes. Evelyn noticed the weariness in his expression. "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world lately. Everything all right?" John hesitated for a moment before nudging. "It's been a tough week. The factory situation is getting worse, and the tensions are only rising." Evelyn poured him a cup of freshly brewed coffee, placing it gently in front of him. "Sit down for a moment. Sometimes, sharing your burdens can lighten the load." John accepted the coffee, his fingers wrapping around the warm mug. He took a deep breath, feeling the comforting aroma fill his senses. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about the strength of our community and bridging the gaps." Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes filled with empathy. "It's not easy, John, but small steps can lead to significant changes. Have you considered reaching out to Marcus?" John sighed, looking down at his hands. "I have, but I'm not sure where to start. There's so much distrust and anger on both sides." Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. "Understanding begins with willingness. Perhaps you can find common ground by focusing on what unites you rather than what divides you." John pondered her words, feeling a spark of hope igniting within him. "Maybe you're right. I just need to find the right approach." Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have a good heart, John. Use it to build bridges, not walls." With renewed determination, John thanked Evelyn and left the store, the weight of his worries slightly lifted by her wisdom. The evening sun cast long shadows across the community center, where residents of all backgrounds had gathered for a scheduled meeting. The room buzzed with nervous energy, the air thick with anticipation and underlying tension. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle, and a podium stood at the front, awaiting the night's agenda. John entered the room, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. He spotted Marcus Thompson standing near the podium, his presence commanding respect and attention. Taking a deep breath, John made his way to an empty seat near the middle of the room. As the clock struck 7, the meeting commenced. Mayor Tom Harris approached the podium, his expression stern and authoritative. "Thank you all for coming tonight. We need to address the ongoing issues at the factory and find a way forward for our community." A murmur of agreement and frustration rippled through the crowd. Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady. "Mayor Harris, we've heard your concerns, but the workers are struggling. We need fair wages and safer working conditions." The discussion grew heated, with voices overlapping in a cacophony of demands and defenses. White workers expressed fear that union actions were influenced by racial motives, while black workers emphasized their shared plight regardless of race. John felt a pang of discomfort as the racial undertones became more apparent. He watched as Marcus spoke passionately, advocating for unity and fair treatment for all workers. After the meeting adjourned, tensions remained high, leaving many residents feeling disheartened and divided. As people began to disperse, John felt a surge of determination. He stood up and approached Marcus, who was surrounded by a group of supporters. "Marcus," John called out, his voice steady despite the lingering tension. "Do you have a moment?" Marcus turned to him, a mixture of curiosity and caution in his eyes. "Of course, John. What can I do for you?" John took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I want to help. I know there's a lot of anger and mistrust, but I believe we can find a way to work together for the benefit of everyone here." Marcus studied him for a moment before nodding. "It's not easy, John. There's a lot of history and hurt on both sides. But if you're serious about bridging the gap, I'm willing to listen." John felt a flicker of hope. "I am. I want to find common ground and help improve conditions for all workers, regardless of race. Maybe we can start by identifying the issues that affect everyone and build from there." Marcus smiled, a genuine expression of cautious optimism. "That's a good start. Let's see what we can do. With that, the seeds of an unlikely alliance were planted, offering a glimmer of hope for a divided community yearning for unity. Later that night, John sat alone in his living room, the events of the day replaying in his mind. The meeting, his conversation with Marcus, and Evelyn's encouraging words all swirled together, forming a mosaic of possibility and uncertainty. He glanced at the framed photo of his family on the mantelpiece, drawing strength from their support. Sarah had always been his anchor, and her unwavering belief in him gave him the courage to pursue a path he had never considered before. Taking a deep breath, John reached for his phone and dialed Marcus's number. After a few rings, Marcus answered, his voice cautious yet open. "John, what's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation today," John began. "I want to help bridge the divide in our community. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to put in the effort if you are." There's a pause on the other end, and John could sense Marcus weighing his words. "I appreciate your willingness, John. It's a challenging road, but perhaps together we can make a difference." John felt a surge of determination. "Let's meet tomorrow and discuss how we can move forward." "All right," Marcus agreed. "I'll see you then." As he hung up, John felt a sense of purpose solidifying within him. The decision to reach out and collaborate was the first step toward healing the wounds that had long festered in their community. The following day, John and Marcus met at a local diner, a neutral ground chosen for their first private discussion. The diner was a cozy establishment with checkered tablecloths and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. They sat across from each other in a quiet booth, menus forgotten as the weight of their conversations settled in. "So, how do we start?" John asked, his eyes meeting Marcus's with earnest intent. Marcus took a sip of his coffee before responding. "We need to identify the common issues affecting all workers: wages, safety, job security. From there, we can develop initiatives that address these concerns without focusing on race." John nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed. It's about highlighting our shared struggles rather than what sets us apart." Marcus leaned forward, his tone serious. "We also need to establish trust. There are deep-seated prejudices that won't disappear overnight. We'll have to work hard to create an environment where everyone feels heard and respected." John felt the weight of the task ahead, but also the potential for meaningful change. "I can help facilitate discussions, bring people together for joint initiatives. Maybe start with small projects to build cooperation." Marcus smiled slightly. "That's a good approach. Start small, show the benefits of working together, and gradually expand from there." They spent the next hour outlining their initial plans, discussing potential projects and strategies to engage the community. The conversation was productive, filled with both challenges and opportunities. As they left the diner, John felt a sense of camaraderie he hadn't anticipated. Despite their different backgrounds, their shared commitment to improving the community created a strong foundation for their partnership. A week later, John and Marcus stood in the center of the local park, surrounded by a handful of enthusiastic volunteers. The park, once neglected and overgrown, was the perfect place for their first collaborative project, a community cleanup and renovation. Banners reading "Unity in Action" hung from nearby trees, and tables were set up with tools, gloves, and refreshments. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, with residents curious to see if this partnership could truly make a difference. John addressed the group, his voice steady. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we're not here as black or white, but as members of the same community. Let's work together to make our park a place we can all be proud of." Marcus nodded in agreement. "It's the small steps that lead to big changes. Let's show everyone what we can achieve when we collaborate." The volunteers split into teams, working side by side to clear debris, plant flowers, and repaint benches. Despite initial reservations, the cooperative spirit began to take root as laughter and conversations flowed freely among the participants. As the day progressed, the park transformed before their eyes. What was once a neglected space became vibrant and inviting, a testament to what could be accomplished through unity. By late afternoon, the project was nearly complete. John and Marcus stood back, admiring their handiwork. The sight of neighbors working together, sharing stories and smiles, was a powerful reminder of the potential for harmony. "We did it," John said, feeling a surge of pride. "This is just the beginning." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Indeed. Let's keep this momentum going." As the volunteers dispersed, many approached John and Marcus with words of appreciation and newfound respect. The success of the project was a beacon of hope, signaling the possibility of a more united and cooperative community. The following day, the local newspaper's office buzzed with activity as reporters gathered to cover the recent community project. The headline, "Unity in Action. Local Park Renovated Through Community Effort," adorned the front page, capturing the essence of the town's first major collaborative initiative. John and Marcus sat in a modest conference room, waiting for their turn to speak with the editor, Lisa Reynolds. The room was filled with the scent of fresh ink and the sound of typing keyboards, a hub of information and storytelling. Lisa approached them with a friendly smile. "John, Marcus, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Your project has garnered a lot of attention, and we'd love to hear more about your efforts." John leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Thank you, Lisa. We're just trying to show that by working together, regardless of our differences, we can achieve something positive for our community." Marcus added, "It's about finding common ground and focusing on our shared goals." The park renovation was a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. Lisa nodded, jotting down notes. "Have you faced any challenges in bringing people together?" John exchanged a glance with Marcus before responding. "Definitely. There's a lot of history and mistrust that takes time to overcome. But projects like this help break down those barriers and build new connections." Lisa smiled warmly. "It's a powerful story of resilience and unity. We'll make sure to highlight the positive impact of your collaboration." As they left the office, John felt a sense of accomplishment. The media attention not only validated their efforts, but also served as a platform to inspire others in the community to join their cause. Later that evening, John shared the news with Sarah, who beamed with pride. "This is amazing, John. You're really making a difference." John nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "It's just the beginning, Sarah. There's so much more we can do." With the spotlight shining on their efforts, John and Marcus were more determined than ever to continue their journey toward unity and reconciliation, proving that even in the face of deep-seated divisions, hope and collaboration could pave the way for a brighter future. The sun rose over the small industrial town, casting a golden hue on the newly renovated park from Act 2. Birds chirped cheerfully, a stark contrast to the tensions that once plagued the community. Inside the community center, John Miller and Marcus Thompson sat at a large wooden table, surrounded by papers, laptops, and coffee cups. The room buzzed with the quiet hum of focused energy as volunteers from different backgrounds began to trickle in. John glanced around the room, noting the diverse group of individuals who had responded to their call for unity. There were white and black workers, young and old, all eager yet uncertain about the path ahead. He felt a surge of pride and determination. This was the beginning of something meaningful. "All right, everyone," John began, his voice steady and encouraging. "Thank you all for coming. We've seen what we can achieve when we work together, and now it's time to build on that momentum." Marcus nodded in agreement, standing up to address the group. "Our goal is to create initiatives that benefit all workers in the community as a whole. We're here to listen, collaborate, and take actionable steps toward improving our lives together." A woman named Linda, a black factory worker, raised her hand. "What are some specific projects we can start with?" John flipped through his notes. "We could organize skill-sharing workshops where workers can teach each other valuable skills. We could also set up mutual aid programs to support those in need, regardless of their background." A man named Steve, a white worker who had been skeptical at first, spoke up hesitantly. "I guess if we're all in this together, it makes sense. But how do we ensure that everyone feels included and respected?" Marcus smiled reassuringly. "It's all about communication and mutual respect. We'll establish ground rules and make sure everyone's voice is heard. This is a safe space for collaboration." As the meeting progressed, ideas flowed freely, and the initial reservations began to fade. The room filled with a sense of purpose and camaraderie, signaling the start of a unified effort to bring positive change to their community. Back at the Miller household, The atmosphere was tense. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of bills, her brow furrowed with worry. John entered. A mixture of exhaustion and determination etched on his face. He took a deep breath before speaking. "Sarah, how's everything?" Sarah looked up, her eyes meeting his with a mix of concern and support. "It's okay, John. Just trying to keep up with the bills. Are you feeling better after today's meeting?" John nodded slowly. "I think so. But I need to be honest. This is harder than I imagined. There are still so many people who don't want to see us succeed together." Sarah reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know it's tough, but remember why you're doing this. You're trying to make things better for everyone, including us." John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth the backlash. I've been getting a lot of cold shoulders at social gatherings. People are angry at me for siding with Marcus and the union." Sarah gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "You're doing the right thing, John. Change isn't easy, and not everyone will understand right away. But you're making a difference." John managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I just hope we can keep pushing forward without everything falling apart around us." Sarah nodded firmly. "We will. Together." As they sat in silence, the weight of their struggles hung in the air. John couldn't help but feel the strain this new path was putting on their lives, but Sarah's unwavering support gave him the strength to persevere. Under the bright afternoon sun, the community center was abuzz with activity. Volunteers from all walks of life were working diligently on a new project, renovating the local playground. The once dilapidated area was being transformed into a vibrant, safe space for children to play. John and Marcus oversaw the efforts, coordinating teams and ensuring that everyone was contributing effectively. Children laughed and played nearby, their joyful noises a stark contrast to the earlier tensions in town. Linda, a black factory worker, painted vibrant murals on the playground equipment, while Steve, a white worker, organized donations of new toys and supplies. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of accomplishment and unity. "Look at this," Linda called out, holding up a brightly colored swing set she had just finished painting. "It's amazing what we can do when we work together." Steve grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Never thought I'd see the day when we'd actually get along like this." John watched as their collective efforts began to take shape, transforming not just the playground, but also the relationships within the community. The sight of neighbors collaborating harmoniously brought a sense of hope that things could indeed change for the better. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the newly renovated playground, John felt a surge of pride. This small victory was a testament to the power of unity and the beginning of a brighter future for their town. A week later, John and Marcus set out to extend their reach beyond the immediate group of volunteers. They visited various parts of town, meeting with residents in different neighborhoods to encourage participation in their initiatives. Their first stop was Mrs. Thompson's house, an elderly black widow who had been a longtime supporter of the union. She greeted them warmly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "John, Marcus, it's wonderful to see you both again," Mrs. Thompson said, offering them tea. "What can I do to help today?" "We're looking to involve more people in our projects," Marcus explained. "Your experience and wisdom would be invaluable in guiding us." Mrs. Thompson smiled. "I'd be happy to help. Perhaps we can start with a community garden? It would provide fresh produce for everyone and serve as a gathering place." John nodded enthusiastically. "That's a great idea. Let's discuss the logistics and get started." Their next stop was the local high school, where they met with teachers and students interested in volunteering. The enthusiasm among the younger generation was palpable, and John felt a renewed sense of optimism. As they moved from one meeting to another, the impact of their outreach became evident. More residents began to see the benefits of working together, and the initial skepticism gave way to cautious optimism. The seeds of unity were beginning to sprout, promising a more cohesive and supportive community. Despite the growing support, not everyone was pleased with the changes unfolding in the town. Mayor Tom Harris, who had previously opposed the union's efforts, was becoming increasingly threatened by John and Marcus's initiatives. One evening, John received a call from Marcus. "Can we meet? I think we need to talk about some issues with the mayor." John agreed, and they met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. The atmosphere was tense as they discussed the challenges they were facing. "Mayor Harris has been spreading rumors to undermine our efforts," Marcus said, frustration evident in his voice. "He's claiming that we're trying to stir up trouble for his political gain." John frowned, running a hand through his hair. "I saw some negative comments on the town's social media pages. We need to address this head-on before it gets out of control." Marcus nodded. "Agreed. We need to confront him and make it clear that our intentions are genuine. Maybe we can organize a town hall meeting to address these rumors publicly." John took a deep breath, contemplating their next move. "A town hall could work, but we need to prepare thoroughly. We'll need to present our initiatives clearly and show the positive impact they've had so far." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on John's shoulder. "We'll get through this. We've already made so much progress. Let's not let him derail our efforts." With a renewed sense of determination, the two leaders began planning their strategy to counteract Mayor Harris's attempts to sow discord within the community. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but their commitment to unity and progress gave them the strength to face the challenges ahead. Back at Evelyn's general store, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. The shelves were filled with fresh produce and local goods, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafted through the air. Evelyn welcomed John and Marcus as they entered, her eyes twinkling with wisdom and kindness. Come in," Evelyn greeted them, gesturing to a cozy seating area by the window. "How are things progressing?" John and Marcus settled into the chairs, sharing a moment of camaraderie. "We've been making some headway," John began, "but Mayor Harris is trying to push back against our efforts. We're planning a town hall meeting to address the rumors he's been spreading." Evelyn listened intently, nodding thoughtfully. "It's natural for people to resist change, especially when it challenges the status quo. But remember, unity is built on trust and understanding. Keep fostering those connections, and let your actions speak louder than his words." Marcus leaned forward, his expression earnest. "That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're focusing on projects that benefit everyone, regardless of race. The community cleanup and the playground renovation have already started to change perceptions." Evelyn smiled warmly. "That's wonderful to hear. Sometimes, the most powerful way to counter negativity is through positive action. Continue to lead by example, and more people will join your cause." John felt a surge of gratitude for Evelyn's unwavering support. "Thank you, Evelyn. Your guidance means a lot to us." She placed a comforting hand on his arm. "You're doing a good thing, John. Keep your heart open and stay true to your intentions. The road may be tough, but the rewards of unity and harmony are worth every effort." As they left the store, John and Marcus felt their bond strengthen, fortified by Evelyn's wisdom and the growing support within the community. The path to unity was challenging, but with each step, they moved closer to bridging the divides that had long separated them. The morning sun cast long shadows over the town as John Miller walked briskly to the mayor's office. The air was thick with anticipation and unease, the recent strides toward unity now overshadowed by mounting opposition. Mayor Tom Harris, a stout man with a stern demeanor, sat behind his large oak desk, papers strewn about in a semblance of order. John took a deep breath, summoning his courage before knocking softly on the heavy door. "Come in," Mayor Harris called without looking up from his paperwork. John stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. "Good morning, Mayor Harris. Do you have a moment?" The mayor looked up, his expression guarded. "What can I do for you, Miller?" John approached the desk, his hands clasped together. "I wanted to discuss the recent community initiatives. We've seen positive results from the park renovation and the outreach programs. I believe we're on the right path to uniting our community." Mayor Harris leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Unity is all well and good, Mr. Miller, but we must consider the economic implications. These initiatives require resources that our town simply doesn't have." John felt a flicker of frustration but maintained his composure. "We've been able to rally volunteers and secure some donations. Perhaps with more support, we can expand these efforts without straining the town's finances." The mayor sighed, a hint of exasperation in his eyes. "It's not just about money, John. There's a lot of resistance from certain groups who believe these initiatives are more about pushing an agenda than genuinely improving conditions for everyone. John nodded thoughtfully. I understand there are concerns, but our goal has always been to benefit the entire community. We're not here to divide, but to bring people together. Mayor Harris stood, moving around the desk to stand face to face with John. Sometimes, Mr. Miller, people are resistant to change, especially when it challenges their long-standing beliefs. Be careful not to overstep. With that, the mayor dismissed him, leaving John standing there, the weight of his words pressing heavily upon him. As John left the office, he couldn't shake the feeling that the path to unity was becoming more treacherous than he had anticipated. Later that week, the factory floor buzzed with heightened tension. Workers moved about with a mix of determination and anxiety, the air thick with unspoken frustrations. John and Marcus had organized another joint meeting to discuss expanding their initiatives, but not everyone was pleased with their efforts. As John addressed the assembled workers, Mayor Harris's earlier warnings echoed in his mind. We need to focus on practical solutions that benefit everyone, he emphasized. Unity shouldn't come at the cost of our economic stability. A group of white workers, led by a man named Rick, exchanged skeptical glances. Rick stepped forward, his voice sharp with anger. This so-called unity is just a cover for pushing a political agenda. We're tired of being told how to think and act. Marcus responded calmly. Our goal is to improve working conditions and ensure fair treatment for all employees. It's not about politics, it's about people. Rick shook his head defiantly. People like you, trying to change everything overnight. We're not going to let you divide us. The room fell silent, the hostility palpable. John felt a surge of frustration but remained steadfast. We're not trying to divide anyone. We're here to build something better for all of us. As the meeting continued, tensions escalated. Voices grew louder, and the atmosphere became charged with hostility. The once hopeful initiative now teetered on the brink of collapse, the racial undercurrents threatening to undo all the progress made so far. One chilly evening, the community gathered at the local church for a special service. The atmosphere was solemn, the air heavy with the weight of recent conflicts. Mayor Harris had been invited to speak, hoping to quell the rising tensions with his authoritative presence. As the congregation settled, a sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. A group of disgruntled workers, led by Rick, stormed into the church, their anger boiling over. Enough is enough, Rick shouted, his voice echoing through the sanctuary. We're not going to stand by while you ruin our town. The congregation gasped, the peaceful environment shattered by the outburst. John and Marcus exchanged worried glances, realizing that the situation had reached a critical juncture. Mayor Harris attempted to regain control, his voice firm yet strained. Please, let's maintain order. We're here to find solutions, not create more division. But the tension was too high. A heated argument ensued, voices overlapping in a cacophony of anger and frustration. Suddenly, a scuffle broke out, objects being thrown, and chaos engulfed the once serene space. As the commotion reached its peak, John found himself in the midst of the turmoil, trying to mediate and calm the agitated crowd. Amidst the chaos, a violent incident occurred, leaving a few injured and many shaken. The aftermath was devastating. The town was forced to confront the dire consequences of their hatred and division. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragile balance between unity and discord, pushing the community to the brink of further turmoil. In the days following the church incident, the town was abuzz with rumors and fear. John returned home one evening to find a threatening note slipped under his door. His heart pounded as he read the harsh words, the implications clear. His efforts to bridge the racial divide had made him a target. At the same time, Marcus received a similar message at his home, warning him to cease his union activities or face severe consequences. The personal threats weighed heavily on both leaders, their determination tested by the increasing dangers surrounding them. John shared the incident with Sarah, his voice wavering with fear and frustration. They're getting more aggressive, Sarah. I never imagined it would come to this. Sarah held his hand tightly, her eyes filled with concern. We knew it wouldn't be easy, John. But you have to stay strong. We're in this together. Meanwhile, Marcus confided in Evelyn at her general store, seeking solace and advice. Evelyn, they're trying to scare us away. How do we keep going when our lives are at risk? Evelyn looked at him with deep empathy. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Marcus. It's the strength to move forward despite it. Remember why you're doing this and lean on your community for support. Her words provided a glimmer of hope, reminding both John and Marcus of the importance of their mission. Despite the growing threats, their resolve to unite the community remained unshaken, even as the challenges intensified. Under the cover of darkness, John and Marcus met in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The space, once bustling with industrial activity, now stood silent and desolate, a fitting backdrop for their clandestine discussion. "We need to strategize," Marcus began, his voice low and urgent. "Mayor Harris is escalating his efforts to undermine us. He's rallying those opposed to our initiatives and spreading misinformation." John nodded, his expression grim. "We can't let him tear our community apart. What can we do to counteract his influence?" Marcus leaned in, his eyes scanning the dimly lit room. "We need to strengthen our alliances and reach out to those who are wavering. Transparency and communication are key. Maybe we can host more inclusive events to showcase the benefits of unity." John considered the plan, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing upon him. "And what about the threats? We can't ignore those." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We'll need to increase security measures and ensure our supporters feel safe. We can't let fear silence us." The two leaders spent hours outlining their next moves, the urgency of their mission driving their determination. As they parted ways, the gravity of their situation settled in. But so did their unwavering commitment to fostering unity and overcoming the rising tensions threatening their community. The town's annual fair was in full swing, a much-anticipated event that usually brought joy and togetherness. This year, however, it had become a battleground for opposing factions. John and Marcus arrived early, determined to use the platform to promote unity despite the underlying tensions. As the fair progressed, Mayor Harris took the stage, his presence commanding attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. I want to address the recent unrest and clarify the direction our town must take to ensure economic stability." Before he could continue, Rick and his group stormed the stage, disrupting the mayor's speech. "This isn't about economic stability. It's about forcing your agenda on us," Rick shouted, his voice dripping with contempt. John stepped forward, attempting to mediate. "Rick, let's talk this through. We're all here to find solutions that benefit everyone." But tensions were too high. Another voice joined in. "Stop pretending there's a way forward without acknowledging our grievances." Marcus moved to intervene, his voice calm yet firm. "Everyone, please. Let's focus on what unites us rather than what divides us." The crowd swelled with conflicting emotions, the atmosphere thick with hostility and frustration. Amidst the chaos, a scuffle broke out between opposing groups, mirroring the violence from the church incident. Security rushed to contain the situation, but the damage was already done. As the dust settled, John and Marcus stood amidst the aftermath, their faces etched with exhaustion and sorrow. The public confrontation had only deepened the divisions within the community, leaving them to grapple with the harsh reality that their path to unity was fraught with obstacles. The once vibrant town square now stood in somber silence. The lingering echoes of the recent scuffle at the church had left a deep scar on the community. Police cars and ambulances were parked along the streets, their flashing lights casting an eerie glow over the distressed residents. Inside the local hospital, doctors and nurses hurried through the corridors, attending to the injured. Families huddled together in waiting rooms, their faces etched with worry and fear. The town was grappling with the harsh reality of their divided actions, and the air was thick with grief and regret. John Miller walked through the hospital doors, his heart heavy with concern. He had come to check on one of his close friends who had been caught in the chaos. As he navigated the bustling halls, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the community's fractured spirit pressing down on him. In a quiet corner, Marcus Thompson sat beside a stretcher, his expression one of deep sorrow. The man lying there was a fellow union member who had been injured during the confrontation. Marcus reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll get through this," Marcus whispered, his voice steady despite the turmoil around them. "We have to." John approached, his eyes meeting Marcus's with a shared sense of responsibility. "We need to address this. Our actions have consequences, and we need to find a way to heal." Marcus nodded, his gaze distant. "Agreed. It's clear that our path to unity has been fraught with challenges we didn't fully anticipate." Determined to mend the fractures within the community, John and Marcus organized a series of facilitated dialogue sessions at the community center. These sessions aimed to provide a safe space for residents to express their grievances, share their experiences, and work towards mutual understanding. The first session was scheduled for a chilly Saturday afternoon. The community center was set up with chairs arranged in a circle, a simple but inviting setup. As residents trickled in, a mixture of apprehension and hope filled the room. John took the lead, addressing the group with a calm and reassuring tone. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we're here to listen to each other and find common ground. It's important that we understand each other's perspectives to move forward together." A young woman named Lisa stood up, her voice trembling. "I feel like no one listens to us. The changes you're pushing are affecting our jobs and our lives." Another participant, a middle-aged man named Mike, responded defensively. "And what about our safety? Last week, things got out of hand because of these tensions. We need to feel secure in our community." Marcus stepped in, his voice gentle yet firm. "I understand your concerns. We're here to address them, not to create more divisions. Let's try to find solutions together." As the session progressed, emotions ran high, but the atmosphere gradually shifted towards constructive dialogue. Stories of personal struggles, fears, and aspirations were shared, fostering empathy among the participants. Slowly, the walls of prejudice began to crumble, replaced by tentative steps towards reconciliation. Later that evening, John found himself alone in his living room, the day's events replaying in his mind. The dialogue sessions have been both exhausting and enlightening, revealing the deep-seated fears and frustrations that fueled the town's divisions. He sat down at the kitchen table, picking up a pen and notebook. "What can we do to make this work?" Kim used, scribbling down thoughts and ideas. "How do we move from anger to understanding?" Sarah entered the room quietly, noticing the contemplative look on his face. "It's a long road, John, but every step you take towards understanding is a step in the right direction." John looked up, meeting her eyes with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. "I just hope we can make a real difference. For everyone." Sarah walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You already have. Just keep believing in the possibility of change." Inspired by the progress made in the dialogue sessions, John and Marcus launched new initiatives aimed at healing and rebuilding trust within the community. One of their first projects was the establishment of support groups for those affected by the recent violence and tensions. At the community center, volunteers set up comfortable seating areas, creating an inviting environment for participants to share their stories and receive support. The sessions were facilitated by trained counselors who provided guidance and mediation. During one such session, an elderly woman named Mrs. Jenkins shared her experiences of witnessing the town's gradual decline and the rise of divisions. Her heartfelt testimony resonated deeply with the attendees, prompting a collective sense of empathy and solidarity. Listening to each other, John addressed the group, "is the first step towards healing. We're all here because we care about this town and each other." Marcus added, "It's not about forgetting the past, but about learning from it and building a future where everyone feels valued and respected." As the weeks passed, the healing initiatives began to bear fruit. Participants reported feeling a sense of relief and hope, and the community center became a hub of support and unity. With the foundation of understanding in place, John and Marcus focused on rebuilding trust among the townspeople. They organized joint community projects that required collaboration across racial and social lines, reinforcing the bonds formed during the dialogue sessions. One such project was the creation of a community garden, where residents could grow vegetables, herbs, and flowers together. The garden symbolized growth, both in the physical sense and in the relationships being nurtured. As people worked side by side, barriers began to dissolve, conversations flowed more freely, and shared goals fostered a sense of camaraderie. The garden flourished, much like the newfound unity within the community. During a break, a young man named David approached John and Marcus, a smile on his face. "I never thought I'd be planting seeds alongside someone like Greg, but here we are. It's kind of nice." John nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "It's a start, David. Every small step counts." Marcus added, "Seeing everyone come together like this is exactly what we need. Let's keep pushing forward." As the community continued to make strides toward unity, John and Marcus recognized the importance of addressing past injustices to ensure lasting reconciliation. They organized a special event at the community center dedicated to sharing personal stories and acknowledging the pain caused by years of division and prejudice. The evening was filled with emotional testimonies from both Black and white residents, each sharing their experiences of discrimination, fear, and resilience. The room was silent except for the raw emotions being expressed, the collective vulnerability bringing a profound sense of connection among the attendees. One by one, individuals stepped forward to speak, their voices trembling with the weight of their memories. Tears were shed, and heartfelt apologies were made, paving the way for genuine forgiveness and understanding. John took the stage, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We've all been hurt by the divisions that have plagued our town. Tonight, we stand together to acknowledge our pain and commit to a future where such wounds are healed." Marcus followed, his eyes scanning the room filled with hopeful faces. "It's not enough to simply talk about unity. We must live it every day, in our actions and our hearts. Let's honor our past by building a better tomorrow." As the event concluded, a sense of closure and hope enveloped the community. The act of confronting the past had provided the necessary foundation for true reconciliation, reinforcing the belief that together they could overcome their shared struggles. The early morning sun cast a warm glow over the community center, where a large conference room had been set up for the day's crucial negotiations. Inside, tables were arranged neatly, papers were stacked in organized piles, and a sense of anticipation hung in the air. John Miller and Marcus Thompson stood at the front, flanked by their respective teams, ready to engage in discussions with the factory owners and management. John took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He glanced at Marcus, who gave him a reassuring nod. Together, they had come a long way from the initial tensions and divisions that once threatened to tear the community apart. The factory owner, Mr. Anderson, entered the room, his expression a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. "Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to meet today. Let's hope we can find a way forward that benefits both the workers and the company." Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady and authoritative. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Our goal is to ensure fair wages, safer working conditions, and job security for all employees. We're here to discuss how we can achieve these goals collaboratively." John added, "We've seen the positive impact of our joint initiatives, and we believe that continued cooperation can lead to a more prosperous and harmonious community." The negotiations commenced, with both sides presenting their concerns and proposals. Despite initial disagreements, the atmosphere gradually shifted as John and Marcus facilitated open and respectful dialogue. Compromises were made, and agreements on wage increases, safety protocols, and employee benefits began to take shape. As the meeting progressed, a sense of achievement filled the room. The collaborative efforts of John and Marcus were bearing fruit, demonstrating the power of unity and mutual respect. "Looks like we're making progress," John remarked, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Marcus nodded, his eyes reflecting determination and hope. "This is just the beginning. There's so much more we can achieve together." With the negotiations concluding on a positive note, both parties shook hands, signaling the start of a new era of cooperation and understanding within the community. The afternoon sun bathed the renovated park in a golden light, transforming it into a vibrant hub of activity. Banners reading "Unity in Action" and "Together We Thrive" fluttered in the gentle breeze, adding color and energy to the surroundings. Tables adorned with delicious food, games for children, and stages for performances created an atmosphere of joy and camaraderie. John and Marcus stood at the entrance, welcoming residents with warm smiles and open arms. The success of their joint labor negotiations had brought the community together in ways they had never imagined. Children laughed as they played on the newly installed swings and slides, their carefree joy a testament to the positive changes unfolding in town. Adults mingled, sharing stories of the recent projects and the progress being made towards unity. A local band took to the stage, filling the air with lively music that encouraged everyone to dance and celebrate. The sense of community spirit was palpable, with residents from all backgrounds coming together to enjoy the festivities. During a heartfelt speech, Mayor Harris stepped forward, his demeanor softened by the day's events. Today, we celebrate not just the renovation of our park, but the unity and resilience of our community. Together, we've overcome challenges and built a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Applause erupted from the crowd, the words resonating deeply with everyone present. The community celebration was a powerful affirmation of the progress made, and the bonds forged through collective effort and understanding. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, John and Marcus felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The unity they had worked so hard to achieve was now evident in the smiles and laughter of their fellow residents. Despite the day's successes, not everyone in the community was pleased with the newfound unity. Mayor Tom Harris, though publicly supportive, harbored lingering doubts and concerns about the rapid changes taking place. In the quiet confines of his office, he reviewed reports and memos, his brow furrowed with contemplation. One afternoon, John received a call from Marcus, his voice tense. "We need to talk. There's some resistance brewing, and it's gaining momentum." John agreed to meet Marcus at a secluded cafe, away from the prying eyes of the town. As they sat across from each other, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on them. Mayor Harris is rallying a group of traditionalists who believe our initiatives are undermining the town's values, Marcus explained, his frustration evident. They're organizing meetings and spreading misinformation to create division. John clenched his fists, feeling the sting of opposition. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but we have to stay strong. How do we counteract their influence without escalating tensions?" Marcus leaned back, deep in thought. "We need to reinforce the positive outcomes of our efforts, highlight the benefits of unity, and address their concerns directly. Maybe we can involve neutral mediators to facilitate these discussions." John nodded, determination settling in. "Agreed. We'll need to double down on our outreach and ensure that everyone understands the importance of what we're building together." As they strategized, the resolve to overcome resistance and continue their mission strengthened. The challenges ahead were daunting, but their commitment to unity and the well-being of the community fueled their determination to persevere. The following day, the local newspaper's office was abuzz with activity. Journalists hurriedly typed away, preparing to cover the recent developments in the town. John and Marcus had agreed to sit down for an interview, hoping to use the platform to further promote their message of unity and collaboration. Lisa Reynolds, the editor-in-chief, welcomed them into the conference room. "Thank you both for coming. Your initiatives have garnered significant attention, and we'd like to highlight the positive changes happening in our community." John began. "Our goal has always been to improve the lives of all residents, regardless of their background. By working together, we've been able to achieve tangible results that benefit everyone." Marcus added, "It's about creating a supportive and inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and respected. The success of our joint projects is proof that unity can lead to meaningful progress." Lisa nodded, jotting down notes. "How do you respond to those who feel threatened by these changes?" John replied thoughtfully, "Change can be challenging, especially when it challenges long-held beliefs. But we've seen firsthand how collaboration can bring about positive outcomes. We're committed to continuing these efforts and ensuring that everyone has a voice in shaping our community's future." Marcus concluded, "We believe that through open dialogue and mutual respect, we can overcome any obstacles and build a stronger, more united town." As the interview concluded, the positive media coverage served as a powerful tool to counteract the resistance brewing within the community. The stories of collaboration and success were shared far and wide, inspiring other towns facing similar challenges and reinforcing the importance of unity and understanding. Back at the community center, tension simmered beneath the surface despite the outward appearances of unity. Internal conflicts began to emerge as different factions vied for influence and direction within the initiatives. Some residents felt that certain projects favored specific groups, while others pushed for more inclusive approaches. During a heated meeting, a resident named Karen voiced her concerns. "I appreciate the work being done, but it feels like our voices aren't being heard. We're just following along without having a say in the decision-making process." John listened intently, recognizing the validity of her frustrations. "Thank you for bringing that up, Karen. Our goal has always been to ensure that everyone's voice is heard. Let's discuss how we can make our decision-making more inclusive and transparent." Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own challenges as he navigated the complexities of leading a diverse group. Balancing the needs and expectations of various stakeholders required constant attention and diplomacy. He met with volunteers individually, addressing their concerns and finding common ground to maintain the cohesion of their efforts. One evening, as John and Marcus regrouped after a particularly contentious meeting, Marcus sighed deeply. "It's harder than I thought, keeping everyone on the same page. But we can't let these challenges derail our progress." John placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've come too far to give up now. We'll find a way to address these issues and keep moving forward together." Their unwavering commitment to leadership and unity inspired those around them, reinforcing the foundation of trust and cooperation that had been built over the past months. Determined to solidify the unity within the community and address the internal conflicts, John and Marcus decided to organize a symbolic gesture that would represent their collective commitment to harmony and collaboration. They proposed the construction of a monument in the town square, a sculpture symbolizing unity, resilience, and the bridging of divides. The project garnered widespread support, with residents from all backgrounds contributing their ideas and resources. Artists were commissioned to design the sculpture, and fundraising events were held to gather the necessary funds. The community's enthusiasm was palpable, as each step brought them closer to a tangible symbol of their unity. On a sunny Saturday morning, the town gathered in the square for the unveiling ceremony. The base of the monument was already in place, and the final piece of the sculpture was being carefully positioned. Excitement and anticipation filled the air as the crowd awaited the reveal. John stood at the podium, addressing the assembled residents. "Today, we celebrate not just a monument, but what it represents: our commitment to unity, our resilience in the face of adversity, and our dedication to building a community where everyone feels valued and respected." Marcus continued, "This sculpture is a testament to what we've achieved together. It's a reminder that despite our differences, we can come together to create something beautiful and enduring." As the final piece was secured, a collective cheer erupted from the crowd. The monument stood tall and graceful, its design intricately weaving elements symbolizing unity and strength. Flowers were placed around its base, and residents took turns adding personal touches, making the monument a collaborative masterpiece. The unveiling was met with applause and tears of joy, as the community embraced the significance of the moment. The monument became a beloved landmark, a constant reminder of the power of unity and the enduring bonds forged through collective effort and understanding. As the crowd dispersed, John and Marcus shared a moment of quiet reflection. "This is what we're fighting for," John said softly. "A community where everyone feels they belong." Marcus nodded, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. "And this is just the beginning. There's so much more we can achieve together." Together, they watched as the sun set behind the monument, its golden rays casting a hopeful glow over the town, a symbol of a brighter future built on the foundations of unity and mutual respect.